Hello, my dear students, and welcome once again to another video for our class in Information Management 2. And in the previous video, I told you that I'm going to skip the locations feature of our project and skip immediately to the items. But guess what? I decided that I will be showing you in this video how to build the location feature of our simple inventory project. Okay, so here we are in our Visual Studio Code editor, and just before we continue to create the location part of the project, let me just show you that I have tidied up our code a little bit so it will be more organized. Instead of in the previous video, all the files, the PHP files are all jacked up in the root directory. I decided to organize things up and go ahead and created the directories or folders for buildings, items, and locations, and the program codes for the buildings part of the project are all stored in the folder buildings. As you can see here, these were our previous code, but of course we have to change some paths a little bit, like the path to the include, as well as the path to the forms. Where's that? Oh, yeah. Okay. So I have updated it so that the files will be more organized. And now there's also a folder for items and locations, which are both empty at the moment. Now, in this video, we'll be focusing on the creation of the locations part, which is the for the table locations as well. So to start with, let's create the first our index.php, and inside the locations, this will be, of course, this will display again the form for the location table, data entry form for the locations, as well as the list of locations. I've gone ahead and copied the code from the previous video that we have. This is simply the heading part of our HTML, and of course the nav bar. And then here is where we're going to have to close our body and the HTML side. So here, of course, you're going to have the container part, and the row, and then the column, the for column, which will be for the, what happened? Sorry. Dot call dash md4. This is for the locations entry form. And the other one, this is for the list of locations. All right. So now, if you click on buildings, it's just the same old buildings. When you click on location, we're now in the locations. And of course, this, it should be, location should be the one active. Like that. All right. What's this? Oh. There we go. So again, let's code up our data entry form. And the action to this is going to be locations slash process add process add.php. Okay. And we'll have the form group. Okay, like that. Next, uh, for the next one, we're gonna be using a select or drop down for our building. The name should be building underscore ID. And we're no longer going to use the input type text here. We're gonna use a select building ID. So to get the list of buildings, you have to have a query to that. Of course, we include our db.php. Now we put a dot slash to indicate that the db.php is not in this folder but on the folder above it. And let's have our locations. Oh no, buildings. It's just the query. And we'll just fetch it immediately. Fetch all. Now let's put it on our form as option items. So you have here for each BLDGs as B for buildings. I'm gonna put it inside of an LI. Oh, not an LI, but an option. Option. The value for this option is, of course, going to be the ID of the building. So it's gonna be an interpolation of B ID. And inside is going to be an interpolation also for B name. This is the name of the building. Okay. And what's wrong here? Oh, okay. All right. So now we have our list of buildings. We have to add an empty slot here with a value of 0 and just go do select building. Okay. And of course, we have our button. With the name of create. This is going to be add new location. Just like that. And then here's the list of location at the next side here. It's going to be a table. The head here. And TR TH. This will be the name or location name. And this is going to be what building is the location, right? Have something like that. And of course, here's our T body. and then tr td. Of course, we still have to get the data of all the locations from here. So in our locations, uh, we are going to have to use a select statement with a join, because we'll be joining in the name of the building, because we'll be displaying the name of the building on the third column. Okay, so it's gonna be PDO query select asterisk from select locations that asterisk comma. We'll also have building dot name, and we'll give it an alias of as the building from locations, and left join buildings on buildings that ID is equal to locations that building ID. And of course, you have to put order by locations that name, and fetch it immediately. Okay, so here at the bottom, first this is going to be the input type checkbox with a name of ID, which is an array with a value of, oh, by the way, we have to put this inside of for each statement, for each of our locks or location as L okay. Yes, that's where we put our TR and TDs. This TD is gonna have the name, and this one is gonna have the building. Remember, we're using this building. Where did we get this? This is the alias of building that name. Okay, so we have that. Let's see, and we have an error. Buildings that name should be buildings that name. That one. And we have our locations with their building name. Remember that the name here of the building is coming from the buildings table and not from the locations table, and we're just able to present it this way using a select statement with a join clause. So let me go back to our code, and I forgot to wrap this whole thing into a form. So let's do that. This is for the delete, so this is going to be slash locations slash confirm delete. Okay, and let's indent this one and go back here. This is under close form, and below the table, that's where we can put our button. This is gonna be a danger button, and type submit, and name is delete. It's gonna say delete selected. There you go. And now let's proceed with the create functionality of our locations feature, which will give us the power to add new location. Of course, when you click on add new location, it's gonna open up process add.php, and the form is not in post method. Let me check. Oh, we did not provide any method, it should be post. So this is what happens if it's not a post form. Right. So again, it opens up into process add. So we don't have process add for now. Okay. And so we add it here under locations, new file, process, add.php. So if isset post create, remember that in our form here, we give our button a name of create. So that's what we are trying to get here, or trying to see if there is that that exists. And so if it does exist, we'll have our name, and of course this is the building ID. That's all we have. And now let's proceed with our statement. So it's of course a prepare statement. Insert into locations. We're gonna be using name and building ID. And our values is gonna be simply N, not capital N, and B. And then we'll have our execution. For N, we give it name. And for B, we give it building ID. Okay. And after that, of course, we're gonna do header. Location is going to be slash locations slash index.php to go back to the locations page. Okay, let's try this out. Let me add a new location. Let's have CAST office, and it is in the administrative building. Click add, and we have a problem. Undefined variable PDO. Oh, okay. We did not have the include statement of our database. And we have another, not PH, but PHP. Okay. And so there you go. We have cast office, administrative building. Let's add one more. CCJ office. Still under administrative building, add new location, and there you go, CCJ office, administrative building. Now let's proceed with the edit functionality by converting this into a clickable link. And when you click on it, it's going to open up the update page, the update locations page. All right, let's do that. First, we go back to our index.php and change this, or wrap this into an A tag. Okay, and this is going to be, this will go to slash locations slash update.php, and we have to also pass the ID. Of course, this ID is gonna be an interpolation simply of the L, which is the location, and ID, which by the way is also the value for our input checkbox here. So let's just copy and paste it there. Okay. Now refresh. This becomes a link. When we click on it, it's gonna open up update.php with an ID 2, because 2 is the ID for the registrar's office location. Okay. And now let's now code our update.php program. This one, and first thing we need to do is copy the heading part of the index until the navigation, because we're gonna be using practically the same code here. And then close body and close HTML. In here, it's gonna be the container, and we'll just be displaying the form. So row and call MD4, and I'd like to center this out, so offset MD4 as well, and we'll have our heading saying this is the update location. And of course, what follows is the form itself. So just copy the form here, right about here, and put it there. Okay, so if you click on clinic, it's gonna open up the update. Of course, this is supposed to fill up clinic here, and of course the contents of the building here, which right now is not here. So let's do that. So first, let's get the location value, which is taken from our ID, by the way. So have ID first is equal to get ID, and using that ID we are going to query our location, where ID is equal to, we cannot use query here, it should prepare, and this should be a statement. And here's our location by doing st execute, and our ID is gonna be that ID, and of course you just have to fetch. Okay, before we go down, let's also, while we are here in the PHP script, let's also now grab the list of buildings. I'll just copy the code from here. This is all we need. All right, because of that, this part here will now be working. It's BLDGS. Yeah. Okay. Oops, we have an error. Boolean. It says that this is Boolean. Okay. You cannot fetch immediately. Okay. Let's get that out of the way and do it here and say st fetch. There we go. We have our buildings, but we are not having the nursing here. Supposedly we put the nursing here. That is because our form do not have the code yet to populate the values. all we have to do here in the input is to give it a value which is equal to the interpolation of lock no, sorry, building. This is basically the building. Oh no, the location. That's our variable name for that. It's lock. So lock name, and we'll have the clinic there. For the building, since this is a drop down, what we need to do is to ask whether this is the ID of this is the building ID of this particular location, because if it is, we are going to print the keyword selected. Okay, for example, if we are going to do it here, we have to add a selected keyword to the option to make it the selected one. But you have only to put the selected option if this is the actual building for this particular location. And we can do that by asking the building ID, by equating the building ID with the ID of the building itself, of this particular building. So to do that, just have to put here an interpolation. And the content of the interpolation, to make it short, is a ternary operation. Ternary operation is going to be the building's ID. Is it equal to the locations, which is this guy, lock building underscore ID. If this is true, okay, if this is true, we're going to print selected. Otherwise, we're going to print empty. Okay, so because of that, let's refresh this. Now it's selecting the nursing building. If you're going to inspect this, as you can see, for the administrative building and elementary building, we have now selected. But here, since the building ID of this location is 3, it is equal to the ID of this building 3. So this keyword selected was added there, and resulted that as a result, it is being shown on the select drop down. So I hope you understood that. Anyway, we have to change this to update location. This one also update, and this form is going to go to process update, which of course we need to create. File process update.php. Again, let's check if there is an actual submission of a form by checking is set, and the name of the button was update. If so, we're going to get the name, and let's copy. The other one is building underscore ID. But aside from that, we also need the ID itself, which I forgot to put in here. We have to add a hidden input field, hidden, with the name of an ID, with the value, the ID of this location. So it's an interpolation to lock ID. Okay, so here we can get post ID to that, and create a statement. We have to prepare a statement. This is an update, and we're changing the name to N, and building ID to B, where ID is equal to the ID. So to execute, the N goes to name, the B goes to building ID, and of course ID goes to the ID. And after the update, we're simply going to move header location. So going to be slash location slash index .php. Okay. So let's go back first. And we'll try to click here, and it's CCJ administrative building. Suppose the CCJ office has been moved to where, for example, move to the high school building. Let's update this, and we have an error. I believe this is something to do with our name field. We have to put a backtick to it. Okay, yeah, well, let's get at it while we're at it. Okay, let's see. Still have an error. Okay. I did not provide what table we're updating. What the? So it should be update locations. Okay. And there we go. What did it do? It was CCJ is now in high school building. Let's click again. Put it back to administrative building. Click on update. And there you go. So now let's work on the delete functionality for our locations. Supposedly when we click here and click on delete selected, it should go and display, are you sure you want to delete? And then the list of the selected locations to delete. And the file that is going to be created is confirm_delete. So under locations, new file, confirm delete.php. And of course, let's go ahead and copy the header. Should have a container here and a row and a single column. That should also be in the center. So we put an offset. And here we are going to put here a card with BG warning. Inside this card is gonna card header with an H4 that says delete locations. And card body is gonna be the conversation of saying, are you sure you want to delete these locations? And here is the list of locations that will be displayed. Of course, we don't have that yet, but oh, confirm delete. Confirm delete. Go back to our index. Should be confirm delete. There we go. So now let's take care of the list of locations to be deleted, and that is of course passed here in the form of an array using the name of ID. First of all, let's include our database config, and here we'll have an if statement. By the way, what do we have in our index as the name? It's delete, so is set post delete, and we're gonna count the number of the ID if it's greater than 0. Otherwise, we're just gonna go back to the locations page. Okay, so here we're going to have the IDs imploded. So implode IDs, and so we can get the locations by calling our PDO object and querying where ID is inside the IDs list. And let's immediately fetch all. So now we have our locations variable having the which is the array of our locations that we are about to delete. So we can just put it inside of for each loop locks as L so we have here L showing us the name. Let's try. All right. So of course, this whole thing has to be inside a form. So here, this whole thing here, we have to indent it because we're gonna put a form. And the action of the form is to process delete. Don't forget the full path /locations /process delete. And of course, finally, under the UL is gonna be our button. Since this is a delete button, it's gonna be a danger button. And give it a name of delete. And say here, yes, delete. I'll also put the cancel button, but it should be an ahref. So it's an a dot, and so that it will be looking like a button, we add the button classes. btn success. And this is going to go to /locations /index.php, and we'll be displaying cancel. And there we go. Cancel, go back here. Again, click register in SHS. There we go. Oh, but when we click on yes, delete, we don't have the process delete. Okay, so let's do that. Right click, new file, process _ delete.php. And here we have our delete code. And if is set post delete, we're going to have the IDs. So IDs is equal to implode, comma separator, ID. Oh, we don't have the ID here yet. So it's going to be an input hidden, and the name is ID with bracket, and the value is of course an interpolation to the actual ID, L ID. All right. So now that we have our ID, can move on here, and here's the implode, and of course you gotta do the statement. Actually, just do the PDO and query delete from locations where ID in IDs. And of course, after that, we go to /location/index .php. Okay, let's try this out. Again, let's have ccj and cast, and then click on delete. Say yes. And we no longer have ccj and cast. Okay, so we have completed our locations part of our simple inventory project. In the next video, we are going to perform the items part. Thank you so much, and see you again in the next video.